We shift our focus to this particular story now. South Africa has a vibrant marketing and advertising industry, but transformation in the sector has been slow. Now, the presidency is reviewing the Marketing and Advertising Communications Sector Code. It hopes this will help redress inequality. The presidency has been listening to the public input on the MAC Sector Code. For more insight on the sector, let's now speak with the marketing veteran, Mr. Happy Ntshingila. Mr. Ntshingila, good morning and thank you very much for your time. So public consultations around the Marketing and Advertising Communication Sector Code have started. Now, as a seasoned practitioner in the sector, can you just take us through the issues that continue to plague this particular sector?
You know, the biggest problem with the topic itself is that we talk about transformation all the time. Transformation, transformation, transformation. And yet another charter, and people get asked questions, they give their inputs. But how much of it gets done? That is the problem, really. It sounds like people are ticking boxes all the time, but nothing much happens.
So your view is that the council itself will have very little impact in that transformation agenda because they're supposed to be that watchdog?
Rightly speaking, yes. Because how long has this conversation been held, and yet nothing happens? The problem is that the ad industry is beset by this issue where young black creative kids want to get into the business, but they do not have funding, and because they don't have funding, they find themselves getting bought all the time by the very people that they're trying to compete with. And nothing really has happened in the, I don't know, in 100 years, nothing has happened really. And not much happens. It's just talk.
So this is particularly when it comes to ownership, that you're still seeing the biggest ad execs or ad companies, advertising companies, still being mainly the only players there, that when you're getting new entrants fresh from school, you have these young people that want to start something, and then they're being bought or co-opted into these bigger advertising agencies. Is that what's happening? Precisely.
I actually refer to it as the revolving door. So from time to time, you see youngsters who are pretty good and adept at what they do from an advertising and creativity point of view, but they will not necessarily have the clients that they need. And if you do not have the clients that you need, then you do not have the financial resources to be able to sustain yourself and sustain your company. What then happens is such an unfortunate thing that the very same ad agencies that they would have come from, they will then approach them and offer them a lifeline, offer them offices, offer them money, some kind of incubation, as though they really do need incubation. And before you know it, they've been swallowed back into the same system.
But government, to a certain extent, has taken note that this is what has been happening. And then there's the establishment of this council that is meant to address just this. Perhaps for the benefit of those who are not aware, talk us through the mandate or what was envisioned when this council came about. Because a number of your industry peers are part of that council.
Yeah. Look, the idea is good. The idea of the council, the idea of the charter is good. Make sure that you engender a spirit where people work towards transforming the industry. So though, as far as ticking that box is concerned, the issue is, can they stand up and say, this is what we have said since we were formed however many years ago? I don't think they can. If they were really serious about it, I'm sure by now they would have had a kind of a fund that young black creative people can tap into in order to make sure that this transformation does happen. It is one thing to set targets and say, this is what you need to do from a BE point of view, all those wonderful things. But until you actually become actively involved, you find a fund, you get to a situation where you upskill youngsters because they may be creative, but they will not necessarily be good business people. So a lot of things are lacking. So unfortunately, my answer to your question is quite skeptic. It's just a talk shop.
So now we understand that there's a number of citizens, industry players that are giving input. So perhaps some of this that will come out from ordinary citizens as well as industry players such as yourselves maybe will assist the council in refining their offering, or at least what they're going to do going forward. But what we do know that as part of their mandate also is to deal with the perpetuation of perhaps be it gender stereotypes in some of the content we see in adverts, perpetuation of stereotypes racially. Are you seeing a shift? Because there was an era, particularly last year or 2020, I believe, where there was a desire or a call from many for those within the advertising space to note the language use, to note the characters in some of their adverts and make sure that they're not part of perpetuating certain stereotypes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's industry bodies that actually look after that type of stuff, where you see the stereotypes which from time to time creep into the creativity, and you ask yourself, what kind of people in 2023 can allow that type of thing to happen? So let us separate the naughty part, the naughty people from the actual issues that beset transformation. The ones that still perpetuate the stereotypes are just naughty people that must be taken straight to the courts. That's one aspect. However, what is government's role in making sure that transformation does happen and that they assist the industry in ensuring that this transformation does happen? That is the part where I'm skeptical, and I wish I could be more positive, but I can't, because they haven't done anything substantial that they can nail their colors to the mast and say, this is what we have done since we started speaking about this.
A very scary picture that you paint there, Mr. Ntshingila. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That was marketing veteran Happy Ntshingila.